And this is really such a privilege for me to introduce this individual who is our next presenter. And if you want to know what the definition of an environmental activist is, it's Paul Watson. You know, he was a co-founder of Greenpeace when he was 18 years old. Pretty amazing. And he founded in 1977 Sea Shepherd, which he has been building and moving forward ever since, which is all over the world, defending marine wildlife. Whales are dear to his heart. And I asked him before this session, I said, what got you moving in this direction and so passionate about it? And he told me that when he was 10 years old, he lived in Canada, and there was a particular wildlife refuge that he would like to go to, and he loved the beavers, and he would swim with them. And he would do this every year, and one year he went back and they were gone. And he couldn't figure out what happened. He found out that they had been trapped and killed. And so at that point he got pretty angry, and he started walking the trap lines, and he would free the beavers when he came across one. And it was through that experience that abuse and incomprehensible activities towards wildlife really galvanized him for the rest of his life, for his destiny. It's much easier to follow your destiny than it is to deny it. And so he has had many awards. He works all over the world. I think now you have 5 or 6 ships? 14. Sorry, I'm behind the times. And, you know, 66% of the oceans have been intruded by humans. And as we know, the Japanese are starting they always have under the guise of research, but now they're out there openly hunting whales again. And I saw Paul once say, he put the picture of whales up on the video where I saw a presentation. He said, "These are my bosses. The whales are my bosses." And so through the course of time, he has saved a lot of individual marine mammals, because he's been there on the water, active in real time, not sitting in a desk behind a computer. He's been there in real time, hands-on, heart full in. Makes a huge difference on how effective you are with the heart full in. So he was recognized as one of the top 20th century environmental heroes by Time magazine. He also got the Amazon Peace Prize by the President of Ecuador. I'm not sure which president that was. And he has he's also been very, very vocal about illegal activities against marine life. And he'll tell you the story right now that he's sort of harbor bound because of some actions, international actions that are pending around his activities. So please welcome this amazing human being who's doing what a lot of us would like to do, but we haven't gotten as far as him. Paul Watson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, I only got a half hour here. It's wonderful to be back here after being a year away, and with the opportunity to fill you in on everything we've been doing for the last year. But I want to start by going back to about 25 years ago. I had a Tibetan Buddhist monk who came to visit our ship in Seattle. And he gave me this little statue, a wooden statue, a carving. It was sort of a horse-headed, dragon-winged sort of thing. And he said, I've been asked to give this to you, and could put it up your mast, on the mast. And I didn't know why, but I put it up there. I mean, if a Tibetan Buddhist monk asked you to do that, why not? Put it up there. And never thought anything about it until in 1989 I had the opportunity to meet with and speak with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I showed him a picture of this, and I said, what is this? And found out he had sent it to me. And I said, well, what is it? He says, it's called Hayagriva. And I said, what does that mean? He says, it's the manifestation of the wrath of the Buddha. And I said, well, what does that mean? He says, well, sometimes when people cannot see enlightenment, you have to scare the hell out of them until they do. And he understood that this approach that we developed when I first set up Sea Shepherd, I call it aggressive nonviolence. And we are extremely aggressive, but we're nonviolent. And after 42 years, I can proudly say that we have never caused a single injury to a single person out on the oceans, and we haven't sustained any injuries. And we want to keep that record. But at the same time, we want to achieve results. And by doing that, we directly intervene. We ram ships, sometimes we sink a few. And this year was a wonderful year for us because this is the first year in history that there is no whaling in the Southern Hemisphere. No whaling. The Japanese whaling fleet has retreated permanently from the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary. Now, there's been a lot of talk about how they're resuming commercial whaling, but they never stopped. They just changed the name from research whaling back to what it was and always has been, which is commercial whaling. And that is now in its own territorial waters. Japan is now the number 2 whaling country in the world. Norway's number 1. Denmark is number 3. Or Iceland's number 3. Denmark's number 4. And but I'm quite confident that we're going to see the end of whaling, because what they're doing in Japan right now is stopping the subsidies. And this whaling only exists because of government subsidies. So it's not going to stand on its feet. It's going to collapse. So one of the things that we're not doing right now is intervening against them, the Norwegians or the Japanese, because that will anger them and give them more of a spirit to keep doing what they're doing, because they like to have an enemy. And we humiliated the Japanese over the last few years. We shut down their operations in the Southern Ocean. We reduced their kill quotas by 30% most years and 10% one year, only 10% that were taken, and saved over 6,000 whales from their harpoons. And we cost them over $200 million. And that's what drove them down. But they did something in 2011, which was that they decided to take us to court in the United States. They wanted an injunction to stop us. We didn't see how this was possible. Our Dutch-registered ships operating out of Australian ports with international crews against Japanese whalers in the Southern Ocean. What's that got to do with U.S. courts? And Judge Richard Jones in Seattle saw it the same way. And he said to the Japanese, you don't come into my courtroom with unclean hands because you're in contempt of the Australian federal court. You don't come here and apply for an injunction. You're not going to get it. Which is great. We continue to carry on and do what we were doing. And in December 18, our ships had left of that year of 2012. Our ships had left. And the Ninth Circuit gave them their injunction without any explanation or any reason why, except that Judge Alexander Kaczynski was the head judge, and we know what happened to him. But anyway, they got the injunction, but we'd already left. So we found ourselves charged with 21 counts of violation of a federal injunction. That's okay, we went to court in 2013. A week of testimony, witnesses and everything, and Judge Peter Shaw acquitted us. Great, wonderful, end of story. No, 1 year later, the Ninth Circuit overturned it without even questioning us. I never met the judges. And officially, Kaczynski said that I was a pirate. I wasn't charged with anything, but I do have the honor of being officially named a pirate by a federal judge. But so what happened is the judges said to me, "You're going to have to pay damages. You're going to have to pay damages to the Japanese." Now that's $30-40 million. And but the Japanese came back and said, "We don't want damages." And the very good reason why they didn't want damages, because then they would have to open up their books. And that would also reveal that they took $40 million of tsunami relief funds for the tsunami relief funds and put it towards their whaling industry. That would have come out. It came out anyway. But they didn't want that out there. So they came to us and said, "Look, you only have to pay our legal fees. You don't have to pay for the damages." So we said, "Okay, great." So we paid them $2.5 million on legal fees, and then the next day sued them for piracy and brought them into court, forcing them to open up their books. So now they were faced with a situation where they had to do this. So they came to us and mediated, and we settled. And I'm not allowed to say how much money they gave us, but I can say that we came out ahead. And but one of the smartest things I ever did was, just before this thing, by chance, I got legal insurance for $3,400 premium. That case cost us $8 million, but the insurance companies had to pay it, thankfully, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But the Japanese were so humiliated by that what happened is that back in 2010, they rammed and destroyed one of the ships that was working with us, not one of our boats, but they cut it in half, a $2 million vessel, and didn't have to answer to anybody. So the captain of that vessel boarded a Japanese whaler to confront the captain who had just destroyed his ship, and he got arrested for trespassing. And they brought him back to Japan, all the way back to Japan, to put him on trial for trespassing. But then they made a deal with him. And the deal was that if he said that I ordered him to board it, they would give him a suspended sentence. Now, I'm on record on the program Whale Wars advising him not to board, but that didn't matter. He turned me in and made that accusation, and I found myself charged with conspiracy to trespass. Now, I'm the only person in history on the Interpol red list for trespassing. This is a list for serial killers, war criminals, and major drug traffickers, yet I'm there for trespassing. I feel like that guy in Ellis's restaurant, for littering there. And so anyway, what that meant is then they went to Costa Rica and got Costa Rica to issue a red notice against me for stopping a shark finning operation like in 2002. And so, to show you how political it is, last year the Costa Ricans dropped the charges against me because they got a new government. And the environment minister called me up and said, "We're dropping the charges, and this is all political and everything." So they admitted to that. But I unfortunately still have the Japanese red list on there. But what Japan did was make us stronger. Because before that, we were an organization, but now we're a global movement. We're in 42 different countries, and we've decentralized. We have 14 ships out there. Right now, there's about 240 volunteers on those ships, and we're now working in partnerships with governments around the world. So right now, we have partnerships with Benin and Liberia, with Namibia, with Tanzania, with São Tomé, and in fact, earlier this year, we received the highest military decoration in Liberia for our efforts working with them. So what we've done here is we provide the ships, we provide the crew, and they put on the enforcement people on board. That is, the soldiers from their countries. And since we started that program, we have arrested and seized 34 poaching vessels in African waters. And more importantly, we've become a deterrent in those waters to keep them out, stopping the Japanese, the Russians, the Taiwanese, the Spanish from coming in and looting the waters of these countries. And so it's a great program. And now we've now got partnerships with Ecuador, which we've actually had since 2000, with Peru and with Mexico and with Costa Rica. And in Mexico, what we're doing now, we're now about to enter our 6th year of what we call Operation Milagro, and that is to protect the endangered vaquita. There's only 17 of these porpoises left in the world. And if it wasn't for what we've done for the last 5 years, they would now be extinct. What we do is we go into the vaquita refuge with the support of the Mexican government, and we locate and seize and destroy the poaching nets. And so far we've pulled 950 nets. That's 150,000 meters of nets out of those waters. And of course they all have lead weights. 10 tons of lead we've now converted into dive weights. And the nets themselves have been sent off to Slovenia, and they'll be turned into board shorts and shoes. But we've also hired Mexican fishermen to do this work with us, so legal fishermen on that. So it's a very, very good program, but it's also our most dangerous campaign because we're attacked with Molotov cocktails. Our drones are being shot down. We're being shot at, even with the Mexican Navy on board with us, because the vaquita is threatened by the totoaba trade. The totoaba fish, the swim bladder, is worth about anywhere from between $50,000 and $100,000 a kilo on the Chinese market. And with that kind of prices on its head, there's a lot of motivation to go after it. And unfortunately, the vaquita gets caught in these nets, and that's the reason for their mortality and the reason there's so few of them. Right now, I have a vessel out there that's doing research with Mexican scientists to determine how many vaquita are there. And what we do is we lower microphones into the water, and we record the voices and separate them on computer so we can know exactly how many there are there by the sounds that we record, because you very rarely ever see these animals. They're so elusive. So we'll be back again in October to continue that project. What we operate here, we have 4 former U.S. Coast Guard 110 Island class patrol vessels and a former U.S. Coast Guard buoy tender. That's our North American fleet, and that's what's working in the Sea of Cortez right now. We have a number of films coming that are out right now. One of them is called Sea of Shadows, and it is about the vaquita campaign and what's happening along with us with the Elephant Action League, Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, and it's a brilliant film, and really it's actually the Mexican government is very supportive of it. It doesn't make the Mexican government or the Mexican Navy look very good, but fortunately, it came out at the right time, so we could tell the Mexican government that was the government that just got defeated. You guys are the new guys, so now you can take advantage of it, and they are. So they're actually we've shown it in the National Assembly, and they're actually stepping up to really encourage this program. So we're very optimistic that we can save the vaquita from extinction, and also the totoaba, which is an endangered species. The other film we have going out now is called Chasing the Thunder. It was the longest pursuit of a poacher in maritime history, and that was when we shut down the toothfish poachers of the Southern Ocean along the coast of Antarctica. Now, for 10 years, all of these countries that are concerned about illegal fishing did nothing about the ice fishing, the Patagonian Antarctic toothfish, which is, you'll see on the menu, as Chilean sea bass. It's not from Chile, and it's not a bass, but it's a marketing name. So they're very expensive fish because a lot of it's being caught illegally, and there's a big black market on it. So we decided to go after them. Now, we were immediately attacked by the government in Australia saying that we had no authority. And I said, well, you guys don't seem to have any authority either. So we went down there, and they said, well, first, you can never find them. We did in 8 days. Then they said, if you pull up any of those nets, we're going to charge you with illegal fishing. So we just ignored that and pulled up the net. But the one net from the Thunder, they dropped the net and ran. That net, we had 2 ships down there. One chased the Thunder, the other one pulled the net. That net was 72 kilometers long and weighed 70 tons. That was one net. That net was pulled in completely and has been recycled. But that pursuit of our vessel, the Bob Barker, chasing the Thunder was 110 days from the coast of Antarctica all the way to the waters of San Tomé. And finally, after 110 days, the captain on the Thunder decided to sink his own ship in front of us to destroy the evidence. We got it all on film. And so what happened is, well, he did that, but we boarded the vessel as it was sinking, and we got the evidence. That guy's now in prison for 3 years, his 2 officers in for 2 years, and the company got a 17 million euro fine for that. And the other 5 poaching vessels were also apprehended, 2 in Cape Verde, 1 in Malaysia, 1 in Thailand, and 1 in Indonesia, which the Indonesian fisheries minister doesn't take any nonsense from illegal fishing. She blew it up, and she has a habit of doing that. So those were very, very successful campaigns. And what we're doing now is to try and build up our fleet. Like I said, we have 14 ships. But we're trying to also find a way of having our ships to be more more green, really. We have one sailing vessel, the Martin Sheen. Right now it's off the coast of British Columbia doing research on the impact or transmission of viruses and parasites from salmon farms to domestic wild salmon populations. And that we shut down 17 of those farms in the last year. And so that's going pretty good. But what we want to do right now is we're looking at the possibility of building a specially designed hydrogen-powered fast, long patrol boat. And if that works, then we'll have more. We're working with SkyTruth in the Eastern Tropical Pacific. And our vessel, the Bridget Bardot, will be going. The reason, by the way, why these names come from is if you sponsor a boat, you get your name on the boat. So that's why the Bob Barker, the Sam Simon, the Bridget Bardot. And because we're a very small organization, so that sponsorship goes a long ways. So the Bridget Bardot will be going back to the Eastern Tropical Pacific. We've just been to Iceland too, where there will be no whales killed in Iceland this summer, by the way. And then, so we'll be going back there. And SkyTruth is able to see what's going on in the ocean from space. And what they see out there are fleets of up to 300, sometimes 400 ships. It's like looking down at a city in the middle of the ocean, off Ecuador, off Peru or whatever, just taking everything they can get. But they can see it from there, but they can't see it on the surface. So we send, our boats go in and document the activities on the surface, present that evidence to the proper authorities so that they can be dealt with legally. We have a group called Sea Shepherd Legal, which approaches things from the legal side. We have Sea Shepherd Science, which works with scientists. We have Sea Shepherd Dive, which works with the diving communities. And what we discovered, what the Japanese taught us, was that you can stop an individual like myself. You can shut down an organization, but you cannot stop a movement. So Sea Shepherd has become a movement, and so that's where we are right now. And most importantly, I have captains and directors all over the world who are doing an incredible job. Right now we have a crew in the island of Mayotte between Madagascar and Mozambique stopping turtle poachers. We have a crew in Nicaragua doing the same with turtle poachers. We're working on a project now to use drones to drop mangrove seedlings into the areas around Dominica and expanding that through the Caribbean islands to restore the mangrove forests. In the Galapagos, we set up an AIS system that does the surveillance of all the Galapagos National Park waters, so we can detect any vessel coming within 60 miles, and if they don't have a signature on the AIS system, then we go out and intercept them. We also have a canine unit in the Galapagos that tracks down wildlife products going in or out of the area. And we provided them with a patrol boat at one time, and we're continuing to work with them, and we want to expand that operation to the islands of Cocos Island in Costa Rica, Mapello Island in Colombia, Clipperton Island, the French island off of there, and the islands off of Mexico, and also Coiba Island off of Panama, and want to work on getting local groups involved to assist the rangers to make their jobs easier. Because the problem that we're finding out with a lot of these rangers is that they have the passion, they really want to do the job, but they don't have the resources. So we've made it a mission to provide resources where and when we can to those people. And so it's this is where we're expanding and continuing to operate. Now, one of the things that made Sea Shepherd successful in that is we understand that we live in a media culture. And therefore, if you're going to be successful, well, you have to get it on camera. Camera is the most powerful weapon that's ever been invented. And if it isn't on camera, it didn't happen. So we make sure that everything is recorded constantly. And we found that our show Whale Wars has reached millions of people, and the documentaries that we're doing also reach millions of people. And what I've also learned a long time ago about the media is the media only understands four things. There's four elements: sex, scandal, and violence and celebrity. Every story has one of those elements. If it doesn't, it's not a story. So we have to incorporate that in an intelligent manner in order to get that. So just last week I put Pamela Anderson on a salmon farm in British Columbia, guaranteed us front page coverage across the country. If I went on there, nobody cares. 2 years ago, we had to deal with this problem with captive orcas and beluga whales in Russia, and had to get the attention of the Russians. How do we do that? Well, I wrote a speech, but nobody in Russia is going to listen to that from me. So I had Pamela go over and give the speech, and Putin himself listened to it and actually took some action. One of the reasons that we have an advisory board of celebrities is for that very reason. Because as Martin Sheen once told me, we don't really know a lot, but people think that we do. So we've got to take advantage of that. So we have, like, on our advisory board, we have Richard Dean Anderson, we have William Shatner, we have Pierce Brosnan, we have Sean Connery, and we have Christophe Lambert. And so I always say, how can we lose? I mean, we got Batman, we've got the Highlander, we got 2 James Bonds, we got Captain Kirk, so we can't lose. But it does make a difference when you're dealing with the media. And then the other reason we dramatize these issues, and for instance, if anybody saw the Wailord show that we did, a lot of the things that we did on that show weren't really necessary, but it was good TV. So we have to do that kind of things, like water fights with the Japanese whalers. And in fact, one of the funniest things that I did one time is I got these fake crocodile eggs that, if they got wet, they blew up into styrofoam pink crocodiles. The Australian zoo gave them to me. So we started tossing them on the deck. That scared the hell out of them, because all of a sudden these pink crocodiles started popping up all over there. So again, it's good TV. But I want to just briefly say that there's 2 lessons that I learned in my life that stayed with me and have helped considerably. The first was in 1975. When we came up with this idea to save whales from the Russian whaling fleet in the North Pacific. And we were reading a lot of Gandhi at the time, and we thought that all we had to do was put our bodies on the line, get in front of those harpoons, and then just stop killing whales. So in June of '75, Robert Hunter and I found ourselves in a small rubber boat in front of a Soviet harpoon vessel 60 miles off the coast of California for the 200-mile limit. And we were there in front of the harpoon, and we looked up, and the harpooner was there, and for 20 minutes it was successful. He wouldn't fire, and then the Russian captain came storming down the catwalk, screamed into his ear, looked at us, smiled, and brought his finger across his neck, and that's when we realized that Gandhi wasn't going to work for us that day. And a few moments later, there's a horrendous explosion. The harpoon flew over our heads, slammed into the backside of a female whale in a pod of 8 sperm whales. And she screamed, rolled on her side, and the largest whale in that pod suddenly slapped the water with his tail and disappeared. He dove and swam right underneath of us and threw himself at the bow of that Soviet vessel in order to protect his pod. But they were ready for him with an unattached harpoon, pulled the trigger, point blank range, hit him in the head. He screamed, fell back, blood everywhere, and as he was thrashing in agony on the surface, I caught his eye. And he looked straight at me, and now I saw him dive in a trail of bloody bubbles coming real fast towards us. And he came up and out of the water at an angle so the next move was come down right on top of us. And as I looked up at his head rising out of the water, and I saw that eye, an eye the size of my fist, I could even see my own reflection in that eye, I saw something there that changed my life forever, and that was understanding. That he understood what we were trying to do, because I could see the move. He intentionally pulled himself back. I saw him slide back beneath the surface, and he died. He spared my life, and for that reason, I am indebted to that whale. And as I sat there in that boat, and the sun was going down, and I said, why are we killing these whales? You don't kill sperm whales for meat. You kill them for the oil. And one of the great prizes on that was for spermaceti oil, which was used for highly heat-resistant industrial equipment, especially prized for the manufacture of intercontinental ballistic missiles. And I said to myself, here we are, destroying this incredibly intelligent, beautiful, socially aware, sentient being for the purpose of making a weapon meant for the mass extermination of human beings. And that's when it hit me. We're insane. And from that moment on, I said to myself, I'm doing what I'm doing for them. They're my clients, not for people. 1986, we sank half of Iceland's whaling fleet, just shut them down for 17 years. And a former colleague from Greenpeace came up to me and says, I just want to let you know that what you did in Iceland was unforgivable, it was criminal, reprehensible, and an embarrassment to the entire movement. I said, John, we didn't sink those ships for you. We didn't sink them for any human being on the planet. We sank them for the whales. You find me one whale anywhere that disagreed with what we did, and I promise you, we won't do it again. And the interesting thing about that case is that might seem illegal. You go into a country and sink half their whaling fleet. Well, I asked them what the charges were, and they wouldn't tell me. So after 12 months of asking, I flew to Reykjavik and demanded to be arrested. And I was met at the airport by the police and the chief immigration officer. And he said, how long do you intend to stay in Iceland? I said, I don't know, 5 minutes, 5 years, you tell me. He said, well, we have to go to your interrogation. I said, absolutely. We went to interrogation and said, are you admitting to sinking these ships? Well, you know we sunk them. We're going to sink the other two at the first opportunity. The next day I was escorted to the airport and put on a plane and sent back to New York. And the Minister of Justice stood up and he says, who the hell does he think he is? He comes into our country and demands to be arrested. Get him out of here. They knew that to put me on trial would be to put themselves on trial, because what they were doing was illegal. And so we have to confront these things in that way. We have had numerous court cases, but we have won every single one of them. And just another brief example of how that works is we intercepted the bluefin tuna fisheries in the waters off of Libya, actually. And I ordered them to release their catch of 800 bluefin tuna because they were caught illegally. They refused. I put divers in the water. We cut the nets. We released them. It was beautiful. 800 of these fish racing out of those nets to freedom. And I didn't think about anything of it. A year later, I'm in Scotland and my ship's arrested. And because these guys had charged me with destroying their property, otherwise the fish. I said, but these guys were poachers. The British court said, well, that doesn't really matter. It's private property. And I said, oh, okay. So we went to court, and we won in the court. But the poachers, Maltese companies that were doing, they said, oh, well, we'll just throw lawyers at you until we break you. And they took us to the Court of Appeals, and they won. And we said, okay. Then we went to the Supreme Court, overturned it, and we won, and they had to pay us $1.5 million in damages. So you have to fight these things some way right through the courts. Now, the other lesson that I want to say that I learned, and this was back in 1973. I was a medic during the occupation of Wounded Knee in South Dakota. And I was there along with everybody else who were being fired on and by federal troops and that. And I went to Russell Means and I said, look, Russell, we don't have any hope of winning here. We can't possibly win this. And he said something to me that stayed with me for the rest of my life. And he said, well, we're not concerned about winning. We're not concerned about the odds against us. We're here because it's the right thing to do, the right place to do it, and the right time to do it. We can't be too concerned about the future. We have to concentrate on what we're doing in the present. And that stayed with me ever since. And what I found is that that's how we can make a difference. Just concentrate on what you're doing in the present. And we get people from all over the world coming to us. For instance, I got a call years ago from a man in Scotland. He says, they're killing gray seals here in the Orkney Islands. What are you going to do about it? I said, well, I don't know. I'm on the other side of the world. What are you going to do about it? And he said, well, what can I do? And I said, well, we'll put together a group. We did. We put together this group. He went to the Orkney Islands, very enthusiastic. They went up and they started pulling rifles out of the hands of the sealers and throwing them in the ocean, and they all got arrested. We won the case, but most importantly, we got the publicity to raise the money to buy that island, which is today a seal sanctuary. And that was all because one guy said, what can I do? And that's the message. That's the most important message of all, is that each and every one of us has the ability to change the world and to make a difference. And we just have to understand that we need to harness our passion to our imagination and to courage, and that's how we go forward and change the world. And so I'm so happy because we have hundreds and hundreds of people who have crewed with us and have gone on to make a difference. In fact, one of my first mates, who's now a captain, she was just arrested in the Mediterranean for saving 2,000 lives. But apparently that's a crime in Italy. So we're going to try, can't rescue refugees. And so she said, well, I either let them die or I rescue them. So she's proudly going into court to defend that. And so that's the kind of inspiration that we're trying to convey to all of the people who sail with us. So thank you very much for hearing me, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. It's wonderful to be here.